friends. And so what we do is four things, and then we'll get on with the business. We run an annual essay and video competition for high school students nationally. We give tours. We do a luncheon each year. We're raising funds for the Community College of Baltimore County's Henrietta Lack Scholarship, and it's the first such scholarship in STEM of its kind. And we're raising funds for a wax figure of Henrietta Lacks that will be placed in the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum. And we have reached the halfway mark there. The third thing we do is celebration of Black steel workers. And the fourth thing is what? Oh, one day it'll come to me.
Heritage tours.
Say again?
Heritage tours.
Oh yeah, the tours. How could I forget that? Okay, you guys should have, yes, I am by training a professor of English. So you always get handouts from people like us. You should have two handouts. The first one I want to call your attention. Our current congressman who took Elijah Cummings' place is Kwaisi Mfume. You see him there, Dr. Wade, etc. You'll get more information. On the back, these are updates since 2019. One of the things I want to call to your attention at the top, there's a new play called Family Tree, and it is premiering in London. We were invited to join, but most rational people are not going to get on a 7-hour flight, no matter how worthy the cause. So these are things that celebrate her, and that's what we're about. The other thing is we nominated Henrietta Lacks for the National Women's Hall of Fame. It took, 5 years? And finally, she's been admitted. She was admitted in 2019, and it was a virtual ceremony, and it was marvelous. So tour, make sure you eat a cookie if you're feeling faint. Where are the cookies? All right.
Peter's got the cookies.
Peter's got the cookies. So good luck.
Thank you.
So we're going to start by going down Chestnut Street. And this street was built for those who were coming home from World War II. Because of segregation, they could not go in other neighborhoods. So they had built this area. So we better be in the middle? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, great. If I do that, it's the first time. So next time I'll make sure I bring microphone.
Oh, she needs it.
I have a microphone. But he said he wouldn't want it.
Oh. So, it waits around. And on the right-hand side was our Catholic church, was Christ the King Catholic Church, but now it's Our Lady of the Bang. When I came here in the 60s, there were 10 churches. With the gentrification, we're down to 7 churches. And you're walking on the ground that I usually don't even walk on without tears. This was the home of the Charlottes Point Junior Senior High School, built in 1948. They tore it down and put up a government building. So, nice building, but we really wanted to keep our junior high and senior high building that was built in 1948. Four parents that immigrated here from North Carolina, South Carolina, without a formal education. If they put this community up, we should be able to keep it. And that's what we're endeavoring to do. Did you grow up in this? I did not grow up here. I wasn't born here. I met the most handsome and most manly man. And I was working in the city. He came to get a manicure, and they told me something else, and I said, no. But about 20 years later, 6 children, and all in sports, yes. Wow.
But 1960s when I came here to this privately owned. And my favorite thing is what I put on the wall. Oh, resident, Zenobia, is 96, and her neighbor is in her early 90s. So that's about the range of those who had migrated here. We had one of our elder resident that passed maybe a couple months ago. She made it 101. Oh, yeah. And when we get to where we are, the Speed Center, she made 101. Oh, yes. 97. Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mom. That's beautiful. And then she goes out in the back and keeps the yard. Yes. And with her doing her, she encourages all the rest of them. Yes.
That's a good example.
Yes. Now to the left was our elementary school. Well, thank God they didn't tear it down, but they repurposed it for a senior building, so their seniors living there. Okay, and then we're going to go by Chestnut Court and go around the back way. Rows of homes here, and they all got torn down. And now we want to put a marker here. And it was a portion of St. Matthew's Church left. We asked them, please don't tear it down. Let us put a marker there. What did they do? Took it away. So anyway, we're asking God to please let us have our museum restaurant and meeting room. We wanted to preserve those homes that was here because some of the resident that was born here, raised here, is still living there in their 70s now. Yeah. So that's why we wanted to do the museum right here, because it's the gateway to this 1800 historic community. And thank God, all those red signs you see are Henrietta Lack's place that cabinet, when he was county executive, put them up for us. Yes.
And we let the HeLa cells, and we did experiments with them in the advanced biology class that I taught, that she was in. And we always had a discussion whether this was the right thing to do or not. Were we using the cells? And for the most part, it came out that if they could learn something from them and be better scientifically, that they thought that that was a good use of her cells. So I did that for a number of years. There also was a very good film from Australia about the Lack family that I showed before Rebecca ever wrote her book. Rebecca hadn't written the book by the time I had taught the daughter, the great-granddaughter, and she went on to go to Penn State and majored in science. And then she went to the University of Maryland to get in a master's program in psychology. And she was the first member of the Lack family that went on to get a master's, something past that.
So, that would like to leave at this time because we are behind time. We have about 2 more stops and that's it, and go back.
I asked you and I would ask again, we can have you two be up on the porch for a picture.
Where is it from here? Is it that way?
Oh, yes, ma'am. We're on the peninsula, so you come up one side and go back the other side. So as soon as Brother Barry shows his first point, we're going back. And Sister Molly said, if anybody wants to leave, get back. But we only got 2 more stops. Is that okay?
I'm hoping
Okay.
to my stuff, and I dropped it. I don't know.
So-called fulfillment centers, and I don't know how you fulfill yourself by working for $15 an hour and no benefits, or where Jeff Bezos tracks every breath you take. So it's a huge change in the culture of the United States.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things that we stress when we do tours is that the workers in 1941 organized a union. And so they had a real change. And so they were able to have good wages. You'll see, as in the history of Turner Station, many of the people who grew up in steelworker families went on to education, to different things, kind of social mobility. Many of them stayed, and it was not unusual for people to be at Sparrows Point as for 3 generations. And you could get hired if your father worked there. There was an enormously important civil rights movement there. We often will have a speaker, and Courtney talks about the community center, which was originally the high school. That was originally a segregated high school. And so often,
Oh, okay.
he's just looking. And Dundalk was a historically very segregated area. This was it, and Turner Station was considered another planet for many of the white people in Dundalk, and there's still a lot of that going on. But a young guy, Phil Pack, was a senior at the vocational school when the 60s, when the Baltimore County Schools integrated. He then went to Sparrows Point High School, and Bethlehem Steel would come to the high school every spring and recruit guys to be skilled trade apprentices. And because it was a segregated high school, the only skilled trade apprentices that ever got recruited for 80 years were white guys. And Phil was up there and took it and became the first black apprentice skilled trade person down there. But it was an enormous tie to Sparrows Point. And as I said, we have these great programs with Lewis Diggs. If you go online, you'll see he's done the history of the black communities. If you're really interested, there's a website called Sparrows Point Steelworkers, and there's a Facebook page, I Worked at Sparrows Point. And we're doing all kinds of projects. There are 2 books of transcripts out, including transcripts of people who lived in Sparrows Point, in Turner Station rather, called We Always Told Steel Stories. I've done about 100 video interviews of people who worked at Sparrows Point. I worked there, and I didn't work for Bethlehem Steel. I worked for what was originally Dundalk Community College and then became the Community College of Baltimore County. And I was teaching union training classes to the people down there. And they started telling stories. And I thought, boy, we got to save these stories. So that was it. And it was a nice connection between the college now and Turner Station. It was a little bit of a fluke. I was sitting at my desk, you know, kind of half awake, because we always are at our desks. And I got a phone call from someone who says, oh, I'm a fact checker. What was the employment at Sparrows Point in 1941, and what is the correct spelling for Turner Station? And I always laugh because Mrs. Speed's got a t-shirt with a misspelling on it. It's Turner, no S, no apostrophe.
Right.
And so I told them that, and I didn't pay much attention to it, and they said, oh, somebody's doing a book about that. A couple years later, I was looking at the newspaper, and here, #1 book on the bestseller list was The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks.
Right.
And so the college had a community book connection, and over various objections, I got them to adopt that college-wide. And a whole program was set up to bring the college down here and create a relationship and scholarships and stuff like that. And you'll see on here they're raising money for the scholarships at CCBC. So it's an enormous history. I call it an epic civilization. If you're really desperate to find out more about it, I'm teaching a course on Zoom for CCBC starting in a couple weeks in the mornings. You can just go online, and we have great guest speakers, including Lewis Diggs and Elmer Hall talking about the town of Turner Station. But it's an endless history. You just heard about Cab Calloway, you heard all of Courtney's stuff. You could spend a week with Courtney and not get all, and not know all that, or hear all that she knows. And it's just, it's an enormously rich history. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was excellent.
We work with him for Baltimore County. And this church, this was not a church, it was a theater. That was the Anthony Theater. But they tore down the church in Sparrows Point. So Mrs. Thomas let them have this for $1. So these are the pastors that's been here. And now the junior is what they tore down and put home there. The garden, so we don't know if some of the chemical is emitting from the poles or not. But they still use this as their garden. Next door was 2 homes that belonged to one of the players that was from the Negro League that Dr. Joseph Henry Thomas had sent for many of them to come and play. And some kind of way, the home got away from the young lady that was left to. Now she's homeless. And people have their home. So, right back to tears when we come back. Community was always integrated. Like I said, it started off with 3 white families and 5 we were called colored then. So it's always been integrated. But when you hear it, no, it's a total segregation. Not true. Okay. And this store belonged to Mr. Howard Flanoy, who is not a professor, but a teacher at the original South Point Junior Senior High School. And he had tax company here, but he has passed, his wife has passed, so he had 1 daughter, and she is living. So now we're trying to see what we can do to help her to hold on to the properties that her parents had put up. And okay, this was still too in the 40s, so the building is still kept in pretty good shape for that length of time. The architect. This is Oak Street. And if you look all the way down the line on both sides, you can see the same architecture of building the same way. These are many of the homes that the original husband, and she did it, but because she loved him so much, she had this barbershop built for him. And this picture is on the front when we go by, you'll see it. And then on this side, it was a laundromat, and then it turned into cook shop. So now everything is in dire need of help. And we purchased the corner as is. I didn't know what as is means, but I do now. Oh my. But this is where BBC came in 1997 to do the interview. My station is that I use a back station in a theater shop. And then maybe about 5 years later, Rebecca Skloot came. And this is where she wrote most of her information, got most of her information from. So we're gonna go back up to the corner.
And your last name is Speed, right?
My last name is Speed, right?
So same speed?
Same speed. Yes. And I'll show you a picture of that handsome husband that captured my heart. And our barber's in there. I don't know if it's here, wait. Yes. And he was one of the recent ones that was born in the meadow.
That was where the Dollar General was.
Yeah.